Pregnant Lust 12-pack, books 13 through 24. 6 hours of pregnancy erotica, pregnant sex, public sex, age gap erotica. Written by Millie King. Narrated by Kline. Sharing my body with him and a bed with his wife. Pregnant Lust 13. Breeding erotica, BDSM erotica, pregnancy erotica. It was the 5th time I'd awoken in the middle of the night since the 2nd trimester had begun. Women often reported waking up with a hot flush, but mine definitely felt steamier than they'd described. The 2nd trimester, too, brought with it sudden, insatiable desires to be satisfied, the likes of which I'd never experienced before. When paired together, those two sudden changes would play havoc with me. On several occasions in the past, I'd woken up and grabbed my toy, keen to rid myself of the looming horniness that stifled my plans of sleep. That time, though, was different. The idea of grabbing my toy seemed like too much effort, and the notion of getting back to sleep seemed like a dream in itself. Sinful thoughts of Mr. White danced across my mind. I lived with him and his wife, and knowing he was only down the hall intrigued me more than it should have. The sensible thing to do would have been to lie there, trying in vain to ignore the kicking at my stomach and drift off back to sleep. But I wasn't feeling sensible. When I was younger, I sometimes used to sleep in my parents' bed after a particularly bad dream, and for some reason, my mind cast me back to that moment, walking sullenly down the hall and slinking silently between the two of them. Now, though, my intention wasn't so innocent. In my imagination, I pictured pushing open the door to be met by Mr. White, who had somehow seen a glimpse of my forbidden thoughts, and was willing to indulge them. I pushed the duvet off my body and put a hand to my stomach, closing my eyes to tune in to the kicking inside me. With a huff, I kicked my legs out of bed and sat on the edge, dangling my feet to the plush carpet and feeling it tickle the soles. I flicked on the bedside lamp and stared ahead at the wall. "Let's see what happens," I said to myself. I walked to the door, staggering in the half-light, and still not fully awake. I opened the door, moving as though possessed as I stumbled down the hall towards their room. Their door was ajar, and there was a soft light inside as I approached. I knocked carefully on the wood, barely hard enough to move the door. There was no response. I pursed my lip and half turned away, thinking how foolish I'd been to even make it this far. "Scarlet," a voice called. I stopped in my tracks, wondering if I'd heard correctly. Over the sound of my own heartbeat in my ears, I heard the words again. "Scarlet," they whispered. "Is that you?" I moved once more to the door and pushed it cautiously open, hearing the swoosh of it as the bottom slid over the carpet. Inside, propped up in bed beside the bedside lamp, sat Mr. White, holding his book. Next to him lay his wife, Carla, her eye mask donned and her earplugs firmly inserted. "Scarlet," he said, putting down his book. "You okay?" I stood in the doorway, my head cast downwards, as though I was ashamed. "I had a bad dream." "That's all right, honey," he said, barely bothering to whisper. "It was just a dream." Can I jump in with you?" "In here?" he said, looking down at the bed and then across at his sleeping wife. "You're 19, Scarlet." "I know," I said. "I know, but it just calms me down. Please?" He looked across at Carla. She hadn't moved since I walked in. "Every night she's like this," he said, chuckling and shaking his head. "She takes her meds, puts those on, and she's out for the count. I'm constantly jealous." "Me too," I hushed, twisting my mouth awkwardly. "Come on," he said, and he lifted the duvet and got out of bed. Mr. White wore pajama pants, but his top half was completely uncovered. His body was tight and toned, belying his 40-something years. I walked towards him feeling sorry for myself.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?